Now, one of the things that you've done that people outside the UK were slightly annoyed of because they were so excited to watch it because it seemed such a good program and everyone in the UK, including myself, loved it. What was it like working on the 60th anniversary spin-off, Tales from the TARDIS?
Tales of the TARDIS was a very tight schedule, but really lovely because I hadn't worked directly with Russell and Julie and Phil and Scott Hancock
Yeah,
since Wizards, not properly anyway. So it was really nice to go back into that world. It was lovely to be working with them again because it's always so much fun. But it was also really nice for me. I grew up watching Sylvester McCoy was my doctor, so I was really excited to be able to write music for Sylvester and other some of
yeah,
the other classic
yeah.
doctors and their companions, and it was a really nice. It felt really nice to be able to do some more Doctor Who. So
Yeah.
yeah, I loved it.
And when you because you had worked on Sarah Jane Adventures,
Mm.
how was working on Sarah Jane Adventures different to trying to compose new music for a similar style for the sequel Big Finish series Rani takes on the world? How was working on that different to working on the Sarah Jane Adventures?
Well, there were a couple of things. Firstly, doing audio drama is very different from doing television drama
Yeah,
because on television you've got the vision part of it. You've got the pictures, so people can see what's going on. So although you have lots of very clever sound design and things, it's music and sound design in television support the story that's being told.
yeah,
In an audio drama, the music and sound design have to help tell parts of the story that the listener can't see. So I worked very closely with Naomi, the sound designer,
yeah,
um, which was great. And you have to you have to approach it slightly differently because you have to think about not getting in the way of the dialogue, which is the same on television, but you have to think about how you can help tell the story and how you can move things along in different ways. So it's a different challenge. And the other difference was we weren't telling the story for the same. Well, actually, we were telling the story for the same audience, but
yeah,
we weren't telling the story for the same age.
yeah,
So the people who would be listening to Rani are mostly people who grew up watching
yeah,
um, the Sarah Jane Adventures,
yeah,
and the sensibility was slightly different. It was slightly um, more adult, and also the producer Emily and I and the director Helen, uh, we knew we wanted to make sure it was a modern sounding music. So I worked very hard to not fall back into the original Sarah Jane feel because
yeah,
it's 17 years old now. That makes me feel really old. And yeah, so I wanted to make sure that it was modern, but I did want to give nods to the
yeah,
original score. So you'll hear there are uh, some little themes that were in Sarah Jane are in Rani as well.
and it really works really well doing these things. So a lot of uh, things and people are doing stuff like with, for instance, what I can think of the top of my head is Basil Brush. He's doing new shows for the audiences who watched him when they were younger, and those type of things work because
Mm,
they're trying to build on the words. The modern word is just now. I won't say that word.
nostalgia.
Yeah, that word.
Yeah.
That a lot of people think it's that, but with Riley Ticks on the Wood, it's more of a here's what happened next because of the way that we want the character. We want to know if the characters could exist because Doctor Who can
Mm.
track anyone, and knowing that they're there. Do you reckon that having this audio series, do you reckon this will open up the gates for the characters to appear in the main show again?
Well, that's a question you'd have to ask Russell. But I mean, I'd love to see them back on the screens. I mean, um, Angelique and Danny and Tommy are brilliant. They're wonderful. And that's I think they are really responsible for the characters being so well loved still now, because they're such great actors. And yeah, I'd love to see them back on our screens. I think it would be interesting for the Doctor to bump into Rani and Clyde again and
Yeah.
see them a bit more grown up, but we'll have to see.
And one of the things that you've done that doesn't get enough people talking about it, such as it's not on the Whoniverse just yet, but it needs to be added to because it was equally as incredible as the main show. What was it like working on the Sarah Jane Adventures Alien Files?
I actually didn't do anything new for that. That was something where they took all the music that I'd written for the Sarah Jane Adventures and they put it on the Alien Files, how they wanted to use it. So that was an interesting one. They almost had their own library of music.
And when you were doing Tales from the TARDIS, was it more trickier to do because you had to try and make sure the music faded out perfectly to when the omnibus episode was gonna play out? Do you reckon that was harder because you weren't always performing to the action? You had to stop at the perfect moment.
I don't know whether it's harder. Again, it's just a slightly different thing. I had some fun with that. We spoke about how we were going to deal with those. The director Joshua, producer Scott, and myself had lots of conversations about that. But I had some fun with it. So I tried to put some little nods to the music that was on the original shows that we were, bookending. So, for instance, Mark Ayres is a friend of mine. I've known Mark for a very long time, and I tried to blend into the opening of his score so that it was sort of seamless.
Yeah.
And that was nice for me because I got to pay a little nod to his music and things. So yeah, it was a different challenge, but it was good. It was fun.
Don't forget to subscribe to the official Tom Mason YouTube channel